Now we're going to be starting Chapter 8, which focuses on dividing fractions. For Lesson 8.1, we're going to focus primarily on divide fractions and whole numbers. And this one is going to really focus on fraction strips and number lines. Before we start dividing with fractions, I want to review some basic terms that we'll see with division. So we're going to start with a simple whole number, such as 12 divided by 3. 12, our first number in the division problem, is our dividend. Our dividend is our total, or how much we have all together. What division in essence does is we take a total and either we put it into groups of 3 or we have 3 groups and we have to find out how much is in each group. But our divisor tells us how many equal groups we have or how much is in each group equally. For this particular lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to start with 12, and then we're going to repeatedly subtract 3. So division is repeated subtraction. So what you could do is 12 divided by 3 means you're taking 3 away. 12 minus 3 is 9. And you're going to repeatedly take away 3 until you get 0. So you did 12 minus 3 is 9. You did that one time. How many times can you equally subtract 3 repeatedly until you get 0? 9 minus 3 is now 6. You subtracted 3 2 times. 6 minus 3 is 3. You subtracted 3 3 times. 3 minus 3 is 0. And now you have no more to subtract. You want to keep going until either you have 0 or you have a number less than 3, and that will be your remainder. So how many times did you subtract 3? You subtracted it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So your answer, or quotient, is 4. Our first number, our dividend, 12, is what we started with. Our divisor is what we're repeatedly subtracting. And our quotient is how many times we're able to subtract that. Like I said, this is going to focus a lot more on visuals. So I'm going to show you what that might look like if we're drawing circles. 12 wholes could look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, with each circle representing one whole. If you want to take away 3, 1, 2, 3. One group. And you can see here, when you take away these 3, guess how much you'll have left? It'll be your 9. Take away second group of 3. Now we have 6 left over. Take away your third group of 3. Now we have 3 left over. Take away our fourth group of 3. Now we have 0 left over. So you can see here that this equation is the same as this. Division is repeated subtraction. How many we start with and how many we're taking away each time. Your answer would be how many groups of 3 you're able to subtract. If I were to do this in fraction strips, it'll look very similar to this. For now, I'm going to stop at this visual, but in the next one, I'm going to show you the equation, this kind of a process, a fraction strip, and a number line. So for number 2, or actually number 1, the equation is 2 divided by 1/3. 2 divided by 1/3. So let's look at that. 2 divided by 1/3. Looking at the vocabulary from above, the 2 is our dividend, and that is our total. And 1/3 is our divisor. We're trying to find the quotient. And we start with 2. We're starting with 2. And each time division is repeated subtraction, we're going to subtract 1/3. So 2 minus 1/3. Since you can't do 0 minus 1 without regrouping, you'd get a negative number, and while you have this here, you don't want to do that. 2 will become a 1. You're regrouping 1. 3/3 is equivalent to 1, and we're using 3 because they have the same denominator. 3 minus 1 is 2/3. 1 minus 0 is 1 2/3. So you're able to subtract it 1 time. Division's repeated subtraction, so we're going to keep going just like we did before until we get 0. This is what we start with, 2, and we're subtracting 1/3 each time. Subtract 1/3. 2 minus 1. The denominator stays the same. So that was 2 times. Subtract 1/3. 0/3. 1. This is the same as the number 1. We were able to subtract it 3 times. 3/3. 3 minus 1 is 2/3. We're able to subtract it 4 times. Ooh, running out of space here. 1/3. We're able to subtract it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and that's 1/3 minus 1/3, and we'll get 0, and we'll be able to subtract it 6 times. Sorry, got a little messy at the end. Let's draw this out now. 2 divided by 1/3, we started with 2, and we're able to subtract 1/3 over and over until we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we know our answer is going to be 6. Now, they want visuals. So, mathematically, if 2 divided by 1/3 is 2 minus 1/3 until you get 0, or a number where you can't subtract 1/3 anymore, is 6, then let's try doing it visually. Visually, if you have 2 holes, you have 1 hole and you have 2 holes, and you want to split them into thirds, then you're able to split it into thirds 1 time. So that's 1 equal group of 1/3. You're able to split it into 1/3 2 times. So now you have 2 pieces. You're able to take away, look, you took that away, you took that away. That's division, that's repeated subtraction. Another time. Now you're able to do it 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. 6 times. 2 whole, and you take away 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You could do that 6 times. What's interesting about division is if you're starting with a whole number and you're dividing by a fraction, your number is going to get larger, because in essence what you're doing is you're taking what you have and you're dividing into smaller pieces. So if you have 2 pieces of pizza and you cut them into thirds, how many people can you give it to? You give it to 1 person, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even though you start with 2 and you're dividing, the number is getting bigger because each person is getting less than a whole. If we want to look at this same exact equation, 2 minus 1/3 is 1 2/3 minus 1/3 minus 1/3. As a number line, then we'll start with 0. And I'm going to make the longer lines our whole numbers. 1, 2. Get a little bigger. And what we're doing is we're splitting them to thirds. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So if you give them 1/3, that's 1 slice. If you give them 1/3, that's their 2 slices. If you're to give another 1/3, that's 1, 2, 3 slices. Here's another equal 1/3. Here's another equal 1/3. Here's another equal 1/3. 4, 5, 6 slices. Same thing as that. If we were to do it as a fraction strip, here's 1 whole, similar to the number line. here is 2 holes similar to the number line. And what you're doing is each of these is going to be split into thirds. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What you're doing each time is you're taking 2 holes and you're giving everyone less. You're giving them 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You give it to 6 people. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1/3. On your homework, I do want to see both the equation and one of these drawings. Sometimes they'll specify specifically you need to make a number line or you need to use a fraction strip. If they don't specify it, then you can do the equation and any one of these. If they do specify, then you do have to do either the number line, the fraction strip, or any other model. Let's try to do number 2 now. Number 2 is asking for 2 divided by 1/4, and they want you to do it on a number line. 2 divided by 1/4 on a number line. So what I want to see is 2 divided by 1/4. And the first thing I want you to do is label everything. Your 2 is your dividend, and that is your total. Your 4 is your divisor, and for this lesson, it's how much we're going to subtract each time. And we're going to be looking for our quotient or answer. So let's start with 2, and let's repeatedly subtract 1/4. 2 minus 1/4. Since there's no fraction here, we're going to regroup. We're going to use 4 out of 4 as our total because that's the same denominator. 4 minus 1 is 3/4. 1. So we're able to subtract it 1 time. Minus 1/4 again. 3 minus 1 is 2/4. 1 whole. We're able to subtract it 2 times. Minus 1/4. 3 times. Minus 1/4. 4 times, which makes sense because 1, 2, 3, 4 is a whole, and 2 went down to 1 now. Minus 1/4. 3/4. Minus another 4. 2/4. Minus another 4. And we're on our last one. 1/4 minus 1/4 is 0. And we were able to subtract it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our quotient will be 8. Since they want us to use a number line, our whole numbers are going to be the longest numbers. 0, 1, 2. Now keep in mind, if our divisor is 4, then each of these need to be split into 4. To split it into 4, you only need 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. And you can see that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So what you do is you look at your your denominator, which is 4. And if it says 4, then in between the 2 whole numbers, you only need 1 less. So you only need 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. And you can see here it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. We want to subtract 1/4 each time. This section right here is 1/4. So that's 1 piece. This section right here is 1/4. 2 pieces. This section right here is 1/4. 3 pieces. This section right here is 1/4. 4 pieces. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. This section right here is 1/4. This is 1/4. 1/4. 1/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 fourths make 1 whole. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 fourths make a whole. And all together, I have 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pieces. And think about it. If you have 2 whole pieces of pizza and each person is getting 1/4, how many people can you give it to? You have 2 wholes and you're taking away 1/4. You're taking away 1/4. They're getting less than a whole. So you're able to give to 1, 2, 3, 4 people. 1, 2, 3, 4 more for the second pizza. 8 pieces altogether. 2 divided by 1/4 is 8. We're going to do one more problem, and this time we're going to start with a fraction and see how that changes the answer. Keep in mind what the whole is. All right, we'll do one last problem. Now, if you notice, number 3 looks a lot different than numbers 1 and 2. Number 3 is now starting with a fraction, whereas numbers 1 and 2 started with a whole number. So when we're looking at 1/4 divided by 2, we're going to see how that changes the answer and how it changes the process, actually. 1/4 divided by 2. Sorry, it's a little blurry. I'm going to fix that up. All right. Means that 1/4 is our dividend, or our total, and 2 is our divisor. Oops, divisor. And we're trying to find the quotient. What this means is that we are starting with 1/4. So if you were to imagine this piece of pie, we are starting with 1/4. We do not have this piece, we do not have this piece, we do not have that piece. What we're doing with this 1/4 is we're dividing it into 2. We're taking this 1/4 that we have, and we're splitting it into 2. So how big is this piece that someone gets? How big is this equal piece that someone else gets? We're taking the 1/4 and we're dividing by 2. We don't have these pieces. So how big is this piece? That's what our quotient is. We have 1/4. We're splitting it into 2. We're sharing it with 2 people. How much does each person get? When you see a fraction divided by a whole number, the number is going to get smaller because you have 1/4 and you're making that, dividing it by 2, you're splitting that fraction into an even smaller fraction. When you see this, I don't want you to do repeated subtraction. I want you to think about and use a fraction strip. If you want, you could draw this out and then the fraction strip, but the best tool to use at this point is the fraction strip, not the number line and not repeated subtraction. A fraction strip uses 1 just to show this is a whole. So this is our base whole. This is kind of like our full circle. This next step that you're going to do is you're going to look at your dividend. So you're going to make a fraction strip that looks just about the same size, as equal as possible. And you're going to take your dividend and show your dividend. This, in this case, it's 1/4. So you're going to split this into fourths, and you're only going to keep 1/4 of this. So this right here is your dividend. This right here is your total. You only have 1/4. What are you doing to that 1/4? You're taking this 1/4, this total that you have, as much as possible, try to keep these equal with each other. And what are you doing with that? I would recommend taking a second color. You're taking that dividend and you're splitting it into 2. So you want to know how much does this person right here get. The best way to do that is to look at your whole strip and split everything into 2 so you know how big that one slice is. This one slice, which we can't figure out until you think about the whole total, is 1 piece out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 1 out of 8. This right here is your quotient. Now look again. We started with 1 as our base number just so we could get a feeling of what a whole looks like. Then we steered it into our dividend. We only have 1/4. These don't exist. So we have 1/4. These ones we don't own. We only are focused on 1/4. That's our total. That's our dividend. The second piece is our quotient. Once you take that 1/4 and you divide it by 2, how big is this slice? In order to know, you have to look at the whole piece. You have to look at the whole piece. When you split in half, what you're doing is you're splitting this in half, but you're also splitting this in half, you're splitting this in half, you're splitting this in half, and you're seeing how many pieces are there total. There's 8 pieces total. Even if you look at this one, if you split this in half, 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 you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slices. So this is 1/8. 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 Same with this. That's 1/8. That's 1/8. That's 1/8. That's 1/8. That's 1/8. That's 1/8. 1/8. 1/8. And that makes your whole. When you take 1/4 and you split it in half, it's 1/8. When you take 1/4 and you split it in half, your answer is 1/8. So your final answer for 1/4 divided by 2 is 1/8. You're starting with a fraction, you're splitting it into something smaller, and you're going to have a smaller fraction. You might want to review this whenever you see a fraction divided by a whole number. Looking through your homework, you're going to have to do that at 2 different problems from numbers 1 through 9. We're going to take a quick look at the 2 word problem so I could help you start the equation, but you're going to have to figure it out on your own. All right, let's take a quick look at the 2 word problems. All right, number 10 is asking, Amy can run 1/10 mile per minute. How many minutes will it take Amy to run 3 miles? What you want to think about, is there a total? If so, the total would be your dividend. And since this is a word problem, we're going to want to draw our picture boxes. The total and dividend goes on top. Is there a total amount? Yes. Amy's running 3 miles total. So our total and our dividend is 3 miles. And what's she doing at each mile? She could run 1/10 a mile per minute. So this is minute 1, 1 minute. She ran 1/10 a mile. This is 1 minute, your second minute. She ran another 1/10. You don't know how many minutes she ran. This is a question mark minute. You don't know how many minutes, but you know each time she's running 1/10. So it's 3 minus 1/10, minus 1/10, minus 1/10, minus 1/10, until you get 0, and that'll tell you how many minutes she has left. In other words, it's 3 divided by repeated subtraction, 1/10. Your total miles is 3 miles, and she's running 1/10 miles per each minute. 3 divided by 1/10. And there's your picture for it. Try to do a similar process for the next word problem, and let me know if you have any questions.